The first time you launch Cubase 7, it should go out and retrieve the preferences from the older version of Cubase. But if you're starting from scratch, or if you just want to make sure that those basic settings are set properly inside of Cubase 7 so you can get to work, let's first check our audio interface. So I'm going to go under the Devices pull-down menu and select Device Setup. And then when the device setup screen appears, on the left-hand side of the screen, I'm going to click on VST Audio System. And when you come over to the right-hand side of the screen, under the ASIO driver setting, you should see the interface that you were using on Cubase 6.5 or Cubase 6. And if you don't, you can click this little button and choose the driver that you want to use for your audio interface. So in my case, I do want to be using my Steinberg UR28M audio interface, and I'm going to go ahead and click on Switch, and then hit the reset button just to be on the safe side. And then it's also not a bad idea to come over to whatever appears underneath VST Audio System and click on that. It should say something about your audio interface right here. In my case, it's the Steinberg interface, and I definitely do want to have direct monitoring enabled, and it's not a bad idea to click the control panel button and make sure that your buffer size is set to where you want it. Right now I've got my buffer size set at 128 samples, and that's a really good setting for using VST instruments and really low latency latency So I've got that set to 128 samples. I click close, and then just to be on the safe side, I always hit reset. Then I can close the device setup window by clicking OK. So now that we have Cubase 7 using our preferred audio interface, it's not a bad idea to go back to the Devices window and confirm that all of our MIDI interfaces show up as well. So I'm going to go to the MIDI port setup, and you can see that I have all sorts of MIDI interfaces that I can use to get to all of the different MIDI devices that I have in my studio. So you'll want to make sure that your inputs and outputs that you want to use with Cubase are appearing in this MIDI port setup dialog box. Now, if for some reason you don't see your MIDI interfaces over here in the MIDI port setup dialog box, you'll want to go to the manufacturer's website of that particular MIDI interface and get the most current drivers and install them, and then relaunch Cubase, and then they should show up in this MIDI port setup window. And you'll want to do that for every single one of your MIDI compatible devices that you have connected to your computer. So once you're done, you can click on OK, and now we've confirmed that our MIDI devices and our preferred audio device is set up to be used with Cubase 7. Now, in the next tutorial, I'll show you how to confirm some other important preferences.